All right, welcome back. Today we're talking about Chapter 6, strengthening a company's competitive position. Are these books bothering you? I can move them out of the way. No, I'm just going to leave them right there. They're okay. I'm just going to leave them right there. We need to take a competitive position if we're in the market. The one thing you need to know, and we've talked about this before, is your competitors want you dead. They just want you dead as a doorknob. So we've got to understand that. So we've got to take that competitive and defensive position that we need to be competitive to stay on top, and we need to always kind of have a defensive posture in case, or when, not in case, but when they come after us, because they're going to. They want to take away our sales, they want to take away our customers, they want to take away our product, and we have to spend money and money and money to protect those things. So we understand that. But today we're going to be talking about strengthening a company's competitive position. So let's go on the offense first. Let's talk about offense. The first thing we can try to do is have first mover advantage. What a great competitive thing to have. But it's not as simple as it sounds. Number one, we've got to have a new product or a differentiated product. And we also have to be very aggressive in being the first to the market. Not necessarily with product, but that's so important, but necessarily the first to the market with communication. Look what we got for you. We've done all this for you and we've got it for you and you're going to love it. You are just going to eat this up. So first mover means we have to have patents. We have to create customer appeal. We've got to lead with technology. So this is a mouthful. So for me to look and say, well, you need first mover advantage. Well, of course you do. But that just means underneath all of this, we need to focus on technologies and legal and customer communication to create those things so that, in fact, we will have that first mover advantage. Another offensive thing that you can have that's very, very popular, merger and acquisition. Now, this is kind of a misnomer. Your book still calls them mergers and acquisitions, and the body at large calls it mergers and acquisitions, but in reality, there ain't no such thing as a merger. It's an acquisition. Somebody always comes out on top. I was in banking for 15 years, and our bank was one of the largest. In fact, it was the largest in Georgia, probably the 12th largest in the United States, and we merged. And before we merged, our headquarters was in Atlanta. And after we merged, our headquarters was in Charlotte. I guess who won that one? There's no doubt. So it's always an acquisition, and your accountant friends are going to tell you different and all these. No, there's always a king dog there. There's always somebody that's on top. So we're talking about mergers and acquisitions, but we're going to talk about we're going to call them acquisitions. So why would you do that? How does that give you a competitive advantage? Well, it increases your company's scale of operations and market share. The minute you buy that other company, you've got their market share, you've got their production capabilities, you've got their sales force, you've got their executives. That's a problem, though, because you've probably got a lot of two that you only need one of, so there's going to be a lot of downsizing. But you get those scales, you get the markets, you get the production facilities, you get the customers that they have that you didn't have. So yes, there's a lot of benefits to that. Number two, expanding a company's geographic coverage. If I'm an East Coast company and I'm pretty big and I want a West Coast presence, probably the easiest thing for me to do is go buy a company out on the West Coast. It's a whole lot easier than going there and trying to start up a brand new operation. The capital it would take to start all that, then to go into the marketing and get all that distribution going on. So it's easier just to go buy that if I want to be out there. And number three, expanding the company's business into a new product category. They've got something I really want. It would fit in really good with my product line. In terms of distribution, in terms of marketing, it fit really well. I just don't have it. So I can go through all the R&D and et cetera, to bring that product to fruition, or I can just go buy it. And so companies do that. And the fourth thing, gaining quick access to new technology. Somebody's got something you want, the best way to go get it is to buy it. Now, obviously, you got to have the capital to do that, and so I'm snapping my fingers, I just go buy that. Well, but it's quicker and less expensive to go out and get that instead of trying to develop it yourself. So that talks about kind of these things that you're going to do to make yourself more competitive. It talks about how being on the offensive, taking the first step and going out there and creating that, and that's just so important, and that you need to keep that pressure on. So what do y'all think about that? Is that okay? Yeah, boys, what's up? See what I'm saying? Yeah, now. All right, calm back down. I'm back to normal. You know, I just love that. You know. We're good. All right, now we're going to talk about something that companies always use as a strategy to maintain that competitive force. And that is the subject of growth. I would say that growth is probably the number one strategy of all companies. You never hear a company go, next year we're going to shrink our sales. Next year we're not going to win as many games as we won this year. Next year we don't care that we're number one. We're just be good. We're not worried. You will never hear that. Now the assumption to that is that, well, growth must always be really good. Well, me and you can talk about that. And I'm not talking about intellectually, I'm talking about applied. Sometimes growth is not what you need to try to do. You know, it's 2009 and it's the worst economy we've had in 80 years, 100 years, and you're telling me we're going to have a growth strategy when unemployment is out of the roof and it's just not good. So the point is, there are certain times out there when it's not good to grow. If you did grow, it would probably be okay, but to try to grow would probably cost you more money than you would make, so it's not good to grow, but you're never going to hear that. We have that football mentality. Absolutely, we're going to be national champs next year, even though we won 3 games last year. So while me and you will intellectually and intelligently agree that growth's not always the best thing, you're always going to be in a meeting where they're going to come in and say, it's time to grow. And so you need to be on board with that. Don't call attention to yourself, but you just need to understand that when you do walk in as a manager and say, all right, we're going to grow, you have to give specific ways. Here's how it's going to come about. Here's absolutely how it's going to come about. You can't walk in and go, you guys have got to grow. I'll see you in 12 months. You better have grown. So growth is you talk about a management intense situation. Growth is it. You have to lead the way every step of the way. So just take that for what it's worth. Understand that. The second thing you need to understand about growth, it's going to cost you a fortune. When you're in a meeting and some hotshot goes, yeah, we need to grow and I got projections here, blah, 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 you raise your hand and say, how much is that going to cost us? And if they say, well, I don't know what you mean, they'll fire that guy. To grow costs a fortune. We're going to talk about where you're going to spend that money, but you need to understand that because growth sounds so good. Yay, we're going to be bigger, we're going to be better. That's fine and all well and good, but dadgummit, it's going to cost you a fortune. So you got to figure out where you're going to get the money before you start all that growth. All right, so here's the deal. You're going to be told to grow. You're going to be in that environment that supports growth. We want to grow. You remember we talked way back about there were certain tests. There was the fit test. Does my strategy fit the current environment? Well, growth is a perfect example of that. So they walk in, they say, we're going to grow by 10% next year. And it's always 10% because that's easy math for them to do. Has nothing to do with strategy. They really think it'll happen. Here's the reasons 10% makes sense. I could just do it in my head. That's why a lot of times where 10% comes from. But you need to ask yourself, does it pass the fit test? Given our environment, does this strategy make sense? So that's the way to look at it. So I want you to be an expert on growth. So to talk about growth, let's become experts. Let's talk about the 5 growth considerations. Anytime you're in a meeting and some smarty pants goes, we're going to grow next year, they need to present these 5 things. And these 5 things are basically just questions that you have to answer. This isn't a way to grow. These are 5 things you need to understand and consider. That's why they call growth considerations. And answer these questions. And if you can't answer them to your satisfaction, maybe growth ain't what we need to do. So these are the 5 growth considerations. The first one's called type of growth. Under type of growth, you've got 3 components. The first one is intensive growth. Now, we all know about intensive stuff. We've already talked about an intense rivalry. We've already discussed that. And remember the 2 things? It's very, very expensive. And number 2, if you succeed, it's very, very profitable. So we understand intense kind of. We understand the problem with that. So this is the way you would use this. You're in a meeting and you say, all right, here are our type of growths. And the first one is intensive. Do y'all think that's the one we are in? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most intensive, where are we? Well, if you hit about an 8 or a 7, well, yeah, that's going to be it. But if you're in a 2 on intense rivalry, we're moving past that one. That's not the one we're interested in. The second type of growth is called integrative growth. Integrative growth means you buy something, you acquire something. Now, you can integrate forward, you can integrate backward, and you can integrate horizontally. When you integrate forward, that means you buy something in each one of these 3. But in what direction do you buy them? So if I integrate it in a forward direction, I have to go back to my understanding of the value chain. Now, put this in terms of product line and activity of a company. Take General Motors, for instance. General Motors makes a car. The car is made. If they were going to buy something in a forward direction, where does that car go after they buy it, after they make it? Well, you can't go buy a customer, but actually customers don't buy cars from General Motors. Who do they buy cars from? They could buy cars from dealerships. So if General Motors was going to integrate in a forward direction, they would buy a Chevrolet dealership. Forward, it's like, what do I do with my product? What's the next step? Well, if I'm a car manufacturer, my next step is I sell it to a dealership. So that's forward integration. If I was going to do backward integration and I was GM, I'm going, here I am at GM, I'm making cars. What could I buy backwards that would, in the value chain, that would, for some reason, help me? Well, if you were General Motors, you would buy a spark plug company, which General Motors did years ago. I might buy a glass company that makes all my glass. I might buy a tire company that I put on my car. That's backward integration. If it's horizontal integration, and I know this is a 2D screen, but if it's horizontal going this way, Chevrolet would buy Ford or Saab. They would buy another car company. That's horizontal integration. Now, you see how I can grow by buying a dealership, buying a spark plug company, or buying another car company. Immediately, I've got the new markets, I've got the new sales, I've got their new balance sheet, et cetera, et cetera. So immediately I grow. The third way that you can type of growth we have is called diversification. And we're going to talk about diversification later on in a whole chapter devoted to that, so we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it right now. But diversification is where you buy a company that is non-related to your basic product line or service. And you buy this company because you think it has good earnings. It's kind of like buying a T-bill or buying a CD. You're buying something that you think will have a good return, and that's why you bought it. Not because you think it's cool, not because you want to brag to your friends that you own this other company over here, but you would buy it because, number one, you think it will give you return. And there's a whole lot more about diversification. We're going to talk about that in a whole other chapter. And companies have done, a few have done well, most have done terrible with diversification. So it's a very dangerous thing. But those are the three types of growth. You have intensive, integrative, and diversified. The second growth consideration is called basis of growth. Basis of growth. There are four bases of growth. Number one, innovation. 2, product enhancement. 3, product continuation. And 4, imitation. Innovation, you understand that. R&D, come up with a new product. I've got a room full of people that are creative, scientists, whatever, and they're coming up with new stuff. So I'm spending a ton of money. Every now and then I hit, but when I hit, buddy, it hits big. So innovation, is that my basis of growth? Am I counting on innovation to grow my company? Second thing, product enhancement. Now you'll see that innovation, product enhancement, product continuation, imitation, both have a big marketing appeal. I know that innovation has an R&D aspect, but the biggest thing with innovation is I've got to let the public know that I've got this new wonderful product. So product enhancement, I've got a product that's been around for a long, long time, and I just need to make it better. And y'all have seen that, new and improved. With XP9, they come up with all these crazy things like I know what XP9 is, or even if it's a real thing. But product enhancement means I take an existing product and I change it. I make it shinier and better and smoother and whatever. Of course, I'm going to charge you for that because that's very expensive. You wouldn't have believed it was just flying all around. It's very, very expensive. But if I can capture your attention, you customers, oh, this is new, we got to get that new stuff, boom, there you go. The third thing, product continuation. This is where you've had a product that's just been going great guns. It's in maturity, it's kind of leaning over toward the decline now, going great guns, still making me a ton of money. But I'm looking at it and go, it's not making as much as it used to. What can I do? How can I continue this product? I want to jump off that maturity decline and jump it off into a new curve. So what can I do? A good example of this was about 5 years ago. There was a commercial, and the scene opens up, and there's a nice kitchen with an island in it, and there's a bowl with a spoon in it. And as soon as you see that, this attractive, I'd say 20-year-old black female comes walking through the kitchen, kind of in a hurry, and all of a sudden she stops and she goes, "What's that?" And she picks the bowl up and she starts like she's getting ready to eat it. Well, in my house, if there's a bowl of something and you didn't make it, number one, you're afraid to eat it because you don't know what's in it. And number two, if you do eat it, you're probably going to get beat up by whoever made it. But so anyway, it kind of wasn't realistic. She picks it up and she starts poking at it and she starts busting on it. She goes, This doesn't have any fruit in it. She's making a terrible face. And then she takes a bite of it. And then the catchphrase, Kellogg's cornflakes, try them again for the first time. They were basically saying, everybody knows what cornflakes is. All y'all had cornflakes when you were little. Your mama gave them to you. Now that you're big, you don't even take time for breakfast, etc. Remember how cool those were? By the way, they were terrible to begin with. Frosted Flakes, yes, but cornflakes, Anyway, cornflakes, try them again for the very first time. They didn't change the box. They didn't change the formula. They didn't tell you they did. They just were reminding you loved cornflakes. You need to jump back on the cornflake wagon. So that's what product continuation is. I just want to remind you how much you really like this, and I want you to invite you back to the family. And the last one is imitation. Y'all weren't around when they first came out with what they call generic products. This is back in the 80s. Generic cigarettes, generic hairspray, For some reason, they thought if they put it in a white bottle or a white box with a barcode on it, they were saying, well, this saves us costs. You know, the whole point of generic products is you keep costs down. It was like, it was like, this is the cheapest product you can buy. Well, they quickly learned that, and now you don't see that anymore. But the generic products are still out there. You can buy generic cigarettes, you can buy generic cola, you can buy generic hairspray, and the price is down, and we do that to keep the price down, because instead of buying $3 for a bottle of hairspray, I'll spend $1.50 for it. It's probably not as good, you know what, but at least you got some hairspray. So I can do this through imitation. I can grow through imitation. So the 4 bases of growth: innovation, product enhancement, product continuation, and imitation. The 3rd basis of growth is geographical concerns. Geographic concerns. There are 3 ways I can grow geographically: regional, national, and international. Each one of those has its own issues. And see, the way we use this is go, let's talk about geographic concerns. And it's not like we're going to pick all 3 of them and do. You say, well, we're regional right now. What do y'all want to do? And somebody says, well, I think we really ought to go regional. International. We're regional right now. I think we ought to go national. Well, okay, tell me why. Well, you know the reason for that. He better show you, or she better be able to show you, this is the return we will get for going national. Here's my best case Excel spreadsheet, and I really believe it's true. So let's say they convince us. Well, now what's it going to take to go national? Am I going to ship it? Am I going to build new production facilities? Do I really have the market information from Seattle that says they'll buy it? So I'm going to have to take it from Atlanta, Georgia, and somehow either ship it to Seattle or make it in Seattle. So all these issues I would ask. And then let's say I'm regional and somebody says, well, let's go to international. Well, number 1, I better believe I can make some money in France if that's where you want me to go. And number 2, I better have some serious information, market analysis that says, yes, if I can get it to France or make it in France, the French people will buy it. I guarantee it. So you better have that. You better have that information, because geographic is, you're going to spend more money than you can even imagine when you start changing your geographic regions. But that's the way you can grow. I put an operation in France, sales are going to grow, hopefully, income will grow, everything will be good. Number 4, how to grow. How to grow. There's only 2 ways to grow. How to grow. 1 is internally, and number 2 is externally. I can grow internally through profits, sale of stock, those kind of activities. I can sell externally through merger and acquisition. So I can either make the money myself in my income statement, my balance sheet will grow, or I can grow externally by going out and buying somebody, and now the minute I buy them, my balance sheet balloons to that level until I get rid of stuff, but initially it balloons to that level. The 5th way, the 5th type of growth is speed of growth. We think growth is so cool. Remember we start out, growth's always what you got to do. And then I said, no, it's very expensive. The faster you grow, the more money you're going to have. You can grow to death. Perfect example, there was it's like a Walmart, dry goods, I don't know what you'd call that, back in the 80s, called J.M. Fields. They were huge. They were in the top 3 or 4 in the nation. They were from the Northeast, and they came down. J.M. Fields was just huge. They built a facility in Augusta, huge, huge, Walmart-sized store, still there. The story of the building is. That was about 1980. By 1983, they were gone, out of business. The whole company was gone. 1983, they were bankrupt. The company, there's not a J.M. Fields around anymore. Can't find it. Google it. How do you go from being like the number 4th or 3rd largest in the United States to being bankrupt? Listen to this. Over a 3-year period, they expanded their square footage by twice, by 100%. They doubled in size in 3 years. Now think of the money that would take. And so they went to the first bank and they said, we want to borrow some money, a couple million to build one in Augusta. The bank went, oh, J.M. Fields, we love you. Then they went to another bank and said, we need to open one in Gainesville. Oh, J.M. Fields. They went to so many different banks. These banks didn't know what was going on. Of course, they were supposed to be looking at the numbers and things weren't going right. The point is, they built twice as many stores in a 3-year period. And how do you support that? It wasn't that sales weren't coming in. It wasn't that people were not buying. How do you make that kind of payment? How do you support that kind of growth? And they didn't think about that. We're so big, we'll just do it and it'll take care of itself. Well, all of a sudden the banker started curling and going, dude, I need my money. And J.M. Fields went out of business, went bankrupt, could not pay it back. So just remember, you can grow to death. If you grow sales, you got to pay for your accounts receivable. You got to pay for your inventory. It's just amazing how much money that you've got to spend to grow. So you got to have that in your pocket before you start. If you do and you're successful in your growth, good. But if you don't have that money in your pocket, you are just going to be so not doing well at all. So does everybody understand that? Everybody got that? Everybody cool with that? Y'all good with that? All right. Peace. I will see y'all later. Everything's good. Y'all read the book. Take those chapter quizzes. And we'll see you later. Bye.